Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to Little Saturday Cars Live. This is our fourth episode. I appreciate everyone who has been listening to this podcast so far and everyone who's given their feedback and their support and what we think we should put on next. We have more news in the car world today. A couple of reiterations of what we explained on episode 3, but furthermore, it's just an expansion. So let's start with our first article. The article is from Green Car Reports, and the title is How Many Mustang Mach-E Electric SUVs Will Ford Build? We've got numbers. So I skimmed through this article, and what's pretty funny is with our episode 3, we haven't really specified how many cars they're going to make. Nowhere on the website it specified how many cars they would produce in 2020, 2021, but apparently this article says we've got numbers, and it's from a reliable source. It's from John Hinrichs. He's Ford president of automotive, and he specified that they would most likely produce 50,000 Mach-E vehicles in the first year of production, and quote, it's limited. So if you recall from our last episode from the website, the Ford website, when we were looking at the trim levels, the limited was almost sold out. So with 50,000, it's their goal, but I highly doubt that they almost sold 50,000 vehicles. Probably because who knows how many people have $500 to blow just to have a spot of possibly receiving this vehicle. But I'm not sure. I think it's still iffy. And what's even more interesting is the reason why they chose 50,000, or they're going to make 50,000, is because of the battery availability. So if you remember from Tesla's growing pains of how they went over the hump of relying on other companies to make their batteries for them, and once their demand surpassed the quantity of batteries that the other supplier could make, I think the other supplier was Panasonic, Tesla decided to create a huge gigafactory. I think it's called the Gigafactory in the middle of nowhere in Nevada, in the middle of the desert. I think it's outside of Vegas, north Las Vegas, somewhere around there. And I think eventually Ford is going to do this with capital expenditures, in which they're not going to rely on LG Electronics, which has specified on an article that they use LG Chem to make their battery cells. It's going to be a complicated process for Ford if they keep relying on other companies just to make their batteries for them. I think eventually, as I specified before, they need to make their own batteries. So for one, they can make as many as they want, and two, they can have limited quantities of it or unlimited quantities of it. So Ford is pretty early in the electric vehicle processing stage in terms of the manufacturing, the logistics process of it, and I think they're going to walk in Tesla's footsteps, but I think the only difference between what Ford is aiming of doing and what Tesla is aiming of doing is Ford has more profitability in mind than Tesla. Because if you think of Tesla, Tesla's not really a profitable company. They haven't been profitable ever since inception. And Elon Musk has produced companies. I'm not sure if you've heard of Solar City, but he founded Solar City with a relative, and it was hemorrhaging so much money that he eventually needed to buy out the company and put it under Tesla for the sake of shadowing his gigantic losses with Solar City. And Solar City was a publicly traded company. If you look back, I'm not sure if they still have public information available on it, but if I recall, Solar City was losing around 800 million in just 1 year. And I think it was around 2015, 2016. And Tesla, I haven't really looked at their financials lately. It's a publicly traded company, and they are required by law to give their financials and how much they make in a quarterly basis to the public. They haven't made money in a while, and I think it's due to the fact that they're spending so much on research and development, but at the same time the technology is so expensive in correlation to what they're selling at a competitive price that they're just either breaking even or they're losing money from it. And when you break even on a product, but at the same time there's still questions about your reliability and what happens if the car breaks down or if it doesn't work properly when it gets out of the factory. Because when you manufacture stuff, there's a low probability that every single item that you bring out of that factory is going to work. And Tesla can't make the system as perfect. I mean, can't make the system perfect as possible because of human error, design faults in the technology, or it could be anything. But I know for sure in terms of manufacturing and logistics aspects of how Tesla creates their vehicles, that every single vehicle that comes out, they're not built to perfection, and they might have faults. And some faults can be more serious than others, but Tesla is in a deep rabbit hole with money. And I think what Elon is doing, we'll get back to the Mach-E, but I'm just going to finish my thought with Tesla and their huge overhaul of hemorrhaging cash, that the Cybertruck is more of publicity of, I think, brand recognition and them sort of having more verification of how much of a audience that they have in terms of reliable people that have the financial capacity to put down $100 payment to place an order on this vehicle, and sort of have a sense of demand of what people like and what people don't like. And if you think about it, with the supercar that I think it was the last year sometime, the supercar that they released, that car hasn't really come out yet. And I think the reason why they came out with that car is, for one, publicity. They're going to build it, of course, but it's going to take them a while. And two, they want to have a sense of the demand of their vehicles and have a sense of how much product they should make. Because if you're losing a lot of money, then you have to be damn sure that you don't overproduce instead of underproduce to make your prices higher. So, interesting finance and economic theories of supply and demand, and possibly artificially undercutting production to make prices higher, and as a result try to make the company more profitable. So in terms of the Mach-E, I think with their electric overhaul of what they're trying to produce is, I guess, fine. I really don't care. In my personal opinion, I won't buy it because I'm not really a huge, it's just my opinion about Ford. I'm not really a huge Ford guy. I'm more of a Fiat Chrysler type of person, but if you want to get the Ford, then get it. But my issue with companies like these that are, I guess, starting to mass produce electric vehicles in this quantity and with this advanced technology, that I'm pretty sure that there are going to be problems right off the gate with this car, like serious issues of the vehicle not working properly, of course, with the batteries, the motor, the electric motor, just basic issues that I think in order to solve, you need to give it out to the public, because in reality, new products and whoever buys the new product first are essentially guinea pigs for the products getting better. Ford needs to sort of go through these stages, and let's see how it all plans out. And if they succeed, they succeed, good for them. If they don't, then it's just the next stages of this company, which wherever that's going to be. But Ford, as I specified before, is more focused on profit and giving more back to their shareholders, which I think if you're looking for a stock, I think Ford is a great one in terms of the yield to price aspect of it. I think Ford's yield is 7%, and the stock, I believe, the last time I checked, was trading around $8. So if you want to get some good return on your money, then probably Ford is your go-to option. So I was mentioning Tesla before, and I think this article really sums it all in terms of the publicity and what Elon is trying to convey with this truck, and people making memes out of it and making fun of it, and it just brings more awareness to the product itself and the whole company. So I'm most probably going to post this on my SRT Warriors page, which involves a Hellcat motor being mounted to the back of the Cybertruck, which is pretty cool. The setup is awesome. It has a wide body kit on it. It has, I don't know what type of wheels are those, but it's made from Ablominic Design on Facebook. He also has an Instagram account. I follow him. He does great work. The renderings on this photo are pretty awesome, and I'm going to definitely post it on my page and see what type of reactions I'll receive, and also post it on the Dysfunctional Podcast page as well to get your thoughts on it. And yeah, that pretty much sums it all in terms of this article and just what people are making on this truck, and the memes as well. I think the funniest memes are Elon smoking his joint on the Joe Rogan podcast, and all of a sudden this truck pops up in the second part of the meme, and a completely pointless piece of shit of a truck, and he just decides to sell it, which we never know. It could be a piece of shit truck, who knows? But only one way to find out is people buying it and testing it out. So that goes for that article. And the other article that I found interesting, and the last article was on motor1.com, and this one is on motor1.com as well, is the title specifies GM loses money on every 2020 Corvette under $80,000, which I think really makes sense, because I don't know if they're making money on this car if it's $60,000. It just doesn't make sense. Because if you look at the quality of it, this car, the quality is pretty good in terms of the interior, how they designed it, and the incorporations of the aero kit and a bunch of other materials and plastic composites that they put in this car, that it was hard to believe that when they said you can get this car for $60,000, the question was that are they even making money on this? And I guess this article really sums up this point, but I think in general, with this car, it's sort of like another stunt in the car game with, for example, like the Lexus LFA, the Bugatti Chiron, Veyron, all these cars, when they're sold from the manufacturer or from the car dealership, they lose money. But the question is each company can take the loss to a certain degree, but with Chevy, with GM, how much of a loss can they really receive from this vehicle? Because the LFA is really a low production vehicle. Very few people can afford it and buy it. The car, I believe, retailed for $300,000, $300,000 and $400,000, which is pretty high. But the whole reason why I think they were losing money on it, and I guess anyone can DM me and correct me if I'm wrong, is the car originally was supposed to be made out of aluminum composite. The whole body was supposed to be made out of aluminum composite, and they completely decided out of nowhere to scrap the entire car material body and use carbon fiber instead. So there's the justification there that they lose money on that car. And the Bugatti, they just lose money because with the technology and with the engine quad, I think it's a W16 quad turbo engine that they use. With the money that was spent in terms of the research and development on that car, there's no way that with every single car that they sell that they will be making money on it. It's just, for Bugatti, for example, it was just a numbers game of making the fastest car in the world. Because Bugatti's owned by Volkswagen, and Volkswagen doesn't really care because they own another 40 to 45% of the car market, so they don't really care. They just probably wrote Bugatti a blank check, and yeah, they just wanted bragging rights of having the fastest car in the game. But with the Corvette, it's a high production vehicle. And when I was watching the Jay Leno episode when they were reviewing this car, the head designer of Chevy, was talking about how, if you have a decent job, then you can essentially afford this car because it's designed for the average Joe. So the question is if they produce in high quantities of this vehicle and the average price is around, I don't know, let's say 70, then how are they going to deal with that loss? I have no idea, but I think it's Chevy's way of oversaturating this type of market to where they have better trim levels available and they have something better, and eventually the people who have bought and received this trim level in this vehicle, like the base trim level in this vehicle, they would trade in this vehicle and buy something greater, like the Z06 or the Z, I'm not sure, and and they're break even or they're a little bit profitable on it, but I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how much of a percentage of Chevy's or GM's sales are based off of the Corvette. I know they sell a lot, but the question is, how much do they sell? And Chevy is expanding their division in Corvette to also Australia. And there's a huge community of Corvette owners in Australia, and they literally pay double the price with this vehicle because you can't get a Corvette in Australia, and they're going to make this car right-hand drive, which is pretty cool, or left-hand drive. They're going to make this car pretty cool and available to all global markets. And I guess if you're listening and live in Australia and are considering to get this type of vehicle, they're going to sell them in any dealership that sells Holden vehicles. So if you have a Holden dealership, then you can spec this car out and get one. So it's pretty nice of GM to do that. I think what we're going to expand on with this podcast is visual representations of what I discussed on this episode. And if it seems interesting to you on what I discussed with the Corvette, with the Cybertruck, or anything for that matter, I'm going to post it as a visual representation of my opinions of what this car is, because you can't see it on the computer screen because you just see the title and my cover art. But I guess it's a way for you guys to be active on social media and talk to us face to face on how you feel about this vehicle. So I think this ends our episode 4, and I hope everyone has a great weekend and a great